ever feel like you're on this motivational roller coaster? Like one day you're ready to just conquer the world, and then the next day you're struggling to even, get out of bed.
Oh, yeah.
We've all been there, right?
Absolutely.
But what if understanding how motivation actually works could help us stay on track and reach those goals?
That's exactly it. Motivation is the engine driving us towards our goals. And the good news is, it's not some mysterious force out there. There's a real science to it.
Okay.
And we're going to break it down, giving you some actionable strategies
Yeah.
to keep that engine running smoothly.
All right. I am so ready to ditch this roller coaster and actually, get behind the wheel. So first things first, what is motivation?
Motivation is, well, it's that inner drive. It's what pushes us to act, to do anything, really,
Yeah.
whether it's, like you said, getting out of bed in the morning or tackling a big project at work.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, it's all thanks to this dopamine system in our brains.
Dopamine, like the feel-good chemical. So are you saying every time I make progress towards a goal, my brain is having like a little party?
You got it. That's a great way to put it. Dopamine, it acts as like a reward system in your brain.
Huh.
Every step forward, each win, even a small one, triggers this release of dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
And that reinforces the behavior, making you want to keep going.
So it's like my brain is giving me a high five every time I check something off my to-do list.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
wonder it feels so good to be productive.
Right. And it's not always about, those big external rewards like getting a promotion or a good grade or whatever. There's also this thing called intrinsic motivation.
Okay.
And it's about the joy and satisfaction you get from the activity itself.
Oh, you mean like, that feeling when you lose yourself in a hobby? Like I love to paint, for example.
Yeah.
And when I'm painting, I completely lose track of time because I'm so engrossed in it,
Absolutely. That's intrinsic motivation at its best. You're not focused on the end result.
Right.
You're just enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And that can be incredibly powerful.
So we've got this awesome dopamine system, right? Pushing us forward.
Yeah.
And we've got the joy of doing things that we love.
Right.
But then why does it feel like sometimes our motivation just vanishes?
Well, there are a few things that can, kind of sabotage our motivation. Sometimes it's a lack of interest.
Makes sense.
If we're not passionate about something, it's hard to get motivated.
Yeah, I can't imagine being very motivated to do something I found totally boring.
Right. Another big one is overwhelm.
Oh, yeah.
When a task feels just too big
Uh-huh.
or too complicated, it's easy to just kind of freeze up and give up.
I know that feeling well.
Yeah.
Sometimes just thinking about a project is enough to send me like right back to bed.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
And then, there's also this fear of failure.
Oh.
That little voice, that whispers in your ear, what if you mess up?
Yeah.
That can be really, really demotivating.
It really can. And it can even stop us from even starting something in the first place, right?
Absolutely.
But what about when you're not like overwhelmed or afraid, but just tired? Does that play a role?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Low energy, high stress, these can significantly impact motivation levels.
Okay.
Your brain needs resources to function at its best.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's depleted, well, it's way harder to focus.
Yeah.
Think of it like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
You're not going to get very far.
So we've got lack of interest, overwhelm, fear of failure, and just being plain tired.
Right.
It's like a motivational obstacle course out there.
It is.
But there have to be ways to overcome these, right? To stay motivated.
There absolutely are. There are strategies we can use to boost our motivation
Okay.
and achieve our goals, even when we're faced with all those obstacles.
I like the sound of that.
And that's what we're going to dive into next.
Okay, so we've talked about what can, kill our motivation.
Right.
But let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
How do we actually stay motivated?
One of the best strategies, really, is setting clear, achievable goals.
Okay.
And I emphasize, achievable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if a goal just feels way too big or overwhelming,
Yeah.
it's so easy to just get discouraged and lose momentum.
So instead of like saying, I'm going to write a novel, it's more like, I'm going to write 500 words today.
Exactly.
Breaking it down.
Yep. Breaking it down into smaller chunks
Okay.
makes the task less daunting.
Right.
Plus, each small win,
Yeah.
that gives you ahead of that dopamine we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
It fuels your motivation to keep going.
So our brains are basically wired to crave progress,
Pretty much.
even in small doses.
Yeah, your brain loves those little victories.
Oh, I like that.
Another powerful technique is visualization.
Okay.
Just take a few minutes, imagine yourself achieving your goal. Really get into it. How does it feel? What does it look like?
Okay.
Engaging your senses like this, it can actually prime your brain to anticipate those positive feelings.
Interesting.
And that boosts your motivation to make it happen.
It's like giving yourself a sneak peek of the finish line.
Exactly.
You mentioned tracking progress.
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that?
Well, a lot of ways, a journal, an app, even just a simple checklist.
Yeah.
But just visually seeing how far you've come,
Okay.
it's incredibly motivating.
It's true. Those little check marks on a to-do list are so satisfying.
Right.
But sometimes, even with a plan, it's like, I can't find that initial spark.
I hear you.
Any advice for, like, jump-starting motivation when you're just not feeling it?
I'd say it's really important to connect your tasks to something personally meaningful.
Okay.
You got to find your why behind each goal.
Your why.
Yep. Why is this important to you?
Yeah.
How does it align with your values, your aspirations?
So it's about more than just, like, checking things off a list.
Right.
It's about finding that deeper purpose.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
When you have a strong why, it's so much easier to stay motivated, even when things get tough.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what about when you hit a wall? Like when those, those roadblocks we talked about pop up?
Well, one of the biggest ones is that feeling of overwhelm.
Oh, yeah.
When you're facing a ton of tasks.
Right.
It's so tempting to just freeze up and do nothing.
Totally.
The key here is to start small.
Okay.
Even just 5 minutes of focused effort
Okay.
that can help break through that inertia,
Okay.
get you moving in the right direction.
You just start philosophy.
Exactly.
What if you're like stuck on a task that's just boring?
If you're lacking interest, try to mix things up.
Okay.
Turn your work into a game.
A game.
Yeah, like find a new angle, a new approach to the material.
Okay. So make it more interactive.
Right, exactly.
Well, I like that.
Maybe you could try explaining the concepts to someone else.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It forces you to, engage with it more deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But even then, we all hit those setbacks.
We do. We do.
Everybody fails sometimes.
Yeah.
The key is to reframe them as learning opportunities.
Not as failures.
Right, not as failures.
Mm.
Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? What can I do differently next time?
So, like not getting discouraged.
Right. And remember, progress, it isn't always linear.
Okay.
There will be ups and downs.
Yeah.
But as long as you keep moving forward, you're on the right track.
And don't forget to celebrate those milestones.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Even the small ones.
Celebrating progress, it's a powerful way to reinforce those positive behaviors and remind yourself of how far you've come.
I'm all about celebrating the journey, not just the destination.
Oh, I love that.
It makes the whole process so much more enjoyable.
It does.
But how do we make this, last? How do we build that kind of motivation that becomes part of who we are? So we've covered how to stay motivated in the moment, but how do we make it last? How do we build that kind of motivation that just becomes, a part of who we are?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, right?
Right.
Turning motivation into a habit.
Okay.
When you establish consistent routines, actions become more automatic.
Okay.
They require less willpower and effort.
So if I'm trying to make exercise a regular thing, like I'm better off aiming for consistency, even if it's just like a short workout each day.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than those like, sporadic, super intense sessions.
Yep, consistency is key.
Got it.
Think of it like building a muscle.
Okay.
The more you use it, the
Yeah.
stronger it gets.
Makes sense, but let's be honest, there are tons of distractions out there.
Oh, yeah.
How do we stay focused, avoid those motivation derailers?
It's tough, for sure. Minimizing distractions is huge, especially when you need to really focus.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like social media.
Yep, that's a big one.
It's like a black hole. My phone is like always there.
Right, so you
Yeah.
gotta identify your biggest time wasters
Okay.
and find ways to limit their impact.
So boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
But even with the best strategies, there will be days when motivation is just, it's gone.
Of course, of course.
What do you do on those days?
Well, remember, motivation, it's not this constant thing.
Right.
It ebbs and flows, like anything else.
Okay.
So on those low days, acknowledge the feeling.
Mm.
Don't let it paralyze you.
Right.
Sometimes just a short break,
Yeah.
going for a walk, maybe a little mindfulness exercise
Mhm.
can help reset you.
Those little mental breaks can be really powerful.
They can.
And it reminds me, we talked about celebrating those wins earlier,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
matter how small.
It's
Or
important.
it's like a little motivational boost.
Exactly. Celebrating progress is a great way to, Reinforce those positive behaviors
Yeah.
and remind yourself how far you've come.
Yeah. I love that. Rewarding yourself for showing up.
It doesn't have to be anything big,
Right.
just something to acknowledge your effort.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have like a whole new toolkit for achieving my goals.
I'm glad to hear that.
So for our listeners out there who are, ready to tackle their goals, what's one key takeaway you want them to remember?
I would say think about one goal you're really excited about.
Okay.
Now, what's the smallest step, the absolute smallest step
Mm-hmm.
that you can take right now, today,
Okay.
to move toward it? Remember, any action, even the tiniest one,
Yeah.
that's progress.
Progress.
And progress fuels motivation.
So simple, but so powerful. Thank you for sharing all of this with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
This has been such a great deep dive into the science of motivation.
I agree. And to all our listeners out there, keep those motivation engines running.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.